analyzing exactly how to analyze a condo in Kansas for Section 8 purposes. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Fai He. I host the best podcast on affordable housing investments. If you just ask ChatGPT what's the top podcast on affordable housing investments, you're going to get our podcast. And this is why we we do this. This is why we analyze deals every single day. All right, so today, let me kind of show you where I am at. Now, you've been following our past lives, right? Often we analyze deals every single day, but we don't do it live every day anymore because I want to show you some of the other skills that I'm learning. But we've been talking a lot about townhouses and condos in Greensboro, North Carolina. And this is a great area because if you've seen some of our older episodes on affordable housing real estate investing, you've seen that I brought on folks from the Kansas City market, including contractors. So I figured, hey, why not take a look here and see what townhouses or condos are going for? And for those of you that don't know Kansas City, right, this is kind of downtown Kansas City right here. If you guys know where the Chiefs play, they're a little bit up there. But I'm focusing in this area called Johnson County in Kansas, so just over the Missouri line. And in this part, near the Overland Park, Prairie Village, this is a pretty solid area because if you look at some of the schools, you're going to see that some of these schools are like sevens and eights. So overall, pretty good school, solid neighborhood. Where, especially if you're a single mom, you want to raise kids, it's a pretty good area. So I found this condo today. It's 5125 West 75th Street, and I haven't analyzed this deal yet. So let me kind of show you how I analyze this. Now, the first two factors you want to get is you want to figure out, hey, what is the average rent going for on affordablehousing.com? Okay. When you go to affordablehousing.com and you go to the owner section, you go to the market rent area, you plug in the address, you plug in the bedroom count, you're going to see that the average rent for a two bedroom in this area is about 1522. Okay, that's pretty good. Now, I'm going to want to figure out, okay, well, in Johnson County, in their housing authority, if you go to the for landlord section, and let's say, oh, they have a test called rent reasonableness. This is great. So, this is great. Johnson County Housing Authority must ensure that the rents charged by owners and landlords to Housing Choice Voucher, which is previously known as Section 8 vouchers, are reasonable, right? So they got to compare the proposed rent for that unit to the rent of a similar non-subsidized unit. So this means that you can't charge more rent to someone simply because they are a voucher holder, right? For the obvious reasons. And if you've seen some of our past lives, we've brought up the rent reason test, the program guidebook, etc. They all say the same thing, right? So obviously unit size, great, same thing. This has been very consistent with how we've been analyzing deals. Excellent. Now, the 2025 payment standards here, I kind of clicked through Housing Authority landlords. You can scroll to the bottom. They have a 2025 payment standards. And payment standards are great because these payment standards are set between 90% and 110% of the SAFMR, which stands for Small Area Fair Market Rents by zip code. When you click on this, you're going to get by area, by zip code, what your rent ceiling is, quote unquote. And this property in 66208, 66208, where is it? I'm just doing control find. The two bedroom, is this two? Oh, two is one more over. The two bedroom rent for 66208 is 1825. Area 5, this is the highest rent, 1825. Let me write that down. 1825 for a two. How about for a three? 2400 for a three. 2400. Great. 66208. This is a two bed. 66208 payment standards. Johnson County. Great. So now this helps me, and especially my partners, right? They know how to analyze these deals. So this is a great area for you to take a look in. All right. So when you have these items in place, now you can look at, okay, what was my affordable housing market rent? Now, I would not pick, again, I would not use 1825 as my rent because, well, that usually includes utilities. So if the more reasonable rent as a 2 bedroom is 1522, right, then you would probably want to analyze this deal at 1522. Now, could you go a little higher? Just remember, if you're charging 1825, that includes utilities. So you had to back out the utility allowances. So if you look at utility allowances, this is a utility allowance spreadsheet. So let's say you are a townhome. Let's see, semi-detached duplex, single-family detached home, semi-detached duplex. It's probably more like an apartment. That's probably what I'll go with. You got to say, hey, if you don't cover air conditioning, then you got to deduct $11 from that rent, right? If you don't cover water, you got to deduct $54 from that rent. You don't cover sewer, etc. You got to deduct that. So that's how you can back into what your rent ceiling is. But because the lower of the two number is 1522, I'm going to use 1522 as my assumption here because that's less than, that's for 25 units roughly within a 1 mile radius. So let's do 1522 here for now. Great, let's plug in some numbers. Now this property, if you look at the photos, they largely, let's see, 5125 West 75th Street. If you look at the unit, I mean, for the most part, it looks pretty good. I mean, it looks like, I mean, there's some carpet. You could remove the carpet you're going to want to do, but because it's a bedroom, it's not necessary. It's not a must do. And 900 square feet, I don't see room to create another bedroom. So you're not going to be able to have another bedroom, right? Especially if you're under 1,000 square feet. Very hard to carve out an extra bedroom. But hey, it is what it is. What's up, man? How you doing? All right, so now we're analyzing this deal, right? So at $159,000, you're going to get, plug in these details there. And again, you guys want to follow this along, go to affordablehousing.io, go to the get deal analysis tool. And this is the fastest way for you to get a copy of the spreadsheet so that you can do this alongside. Because my goal is this, right? I hope you analyze this a deal every single day. And if you use the same spreadsheet, analyzing the same deal, all you gotta do is copy my homework and start your own YouTube channel. Because at some point, someone's gonna ask you, hey, why isn't this a deal? And you can show them that you kind of know what you're doing. Especially if you show them your YouTube channel and say, hey, I've been looking at deals for the past 691 days in a row. Won't that make you feel a little confident that you know what you're doing? I certainly hope so. All right, so now I'm gonna go to my rehab calculator now. And for the most part, this property, I might put them some touch-up paint, but for the most part, there's no other big rehab. I don't think the, right here in the description, it says that HOA also maintains the HVAC maintenance. So that's why I'm taking out the cage for the HVAC here in this situation. Okay, let me zero that out. Boom. All right, what else do I have? Don't have to renovate the bathroom in this property. Don't have to renovate the kitchen in this property. I don't need to put in new lot. For my flooring, I might say, hey, let me replace carpet on like 300 square feet for that one master bedroom. For my painting, I'm gonna assume maybe I do some touch-up paint for about 600 bucks on a property, but there's not much more I need to do, right? I don't need to do landscaping because that's covered by my HOA fee. And I don't need to do any exterior work because that's covered by my HOA fee. And then I don't need to worry about any roof repairs because that's also covered by HOA fees. So that's your downside, right? Downside is you have a higher HOA fee. Pro side is your insurance is going to be cheaper and you don't have to set aside as much money for capital expenditures because you don't have responsibility for some of your big capital expenditure items. So let's kind of go through it. So if I say I got a $2,000 rehab on this property, my rent is 1522. Okay. Let's see what my taxes are. If I look at the revenue calculator, revenue calculator says my taxes are $142 a month. My HOA right here in B34 is going to 314, and my homeowner insurance is 103. So my maintenance percentage in B32, I'm gonna lower this, right? It was a 10% earlier because that was me analyzing a single family home. But with a condo or townhome, because you're paying such a bigger HOA fee, that HOA fee is used to be set aside for your big capital expenditure items, right? So again, I'm not gonna, it can't be zero, right? Because you know, if you're holding this property for long term, you know at some point things gonna break. So don't be the person that don't underwrite with capital expenditures or maintenance because, well, that just doesn't work. All right. You'd be lying to yourself because you're going to be thinking you made all this extra money over all these years, and then in 10 years from now, maybe you got a big repair, maybe your toilet, maybe you got to replumb the place, and now all of a sudden you realize you didn't make all that money and you lied to yourself. So don't fall for that. Don't lie to yourself. All right. So let's go up here for my closing costs. I'm going to lower this to about 3.5% on this deal. Boom. And that goes into E22. I got 25% down on this property. So if I were to buy this property for 25% down and my interest rate in K7 is 7.75, which is roughly where it is right now that I got quoted, my asking price minus my down payment percentage, so my finance amount for this deal is $119,925. Okay. If that is the case and I rent this property out as a 2-bedroom condo for 1522, well, I'd be losing $200, 201 a month. And that's a negative 5% return. Assuming I bought this property for 160 grand, just rounding here, right? With a $2,000 rehab. So you might be thinking, okay, well, Ken, like what if I get a little bit higher rents, right? Because your payments are 1825. Okay, cool. Let's say you get a 1600, but I'm not going to stretch it more than that, right? Because then you might become unreasonable. At 1600, you're still losing money because now you're losing $138 a month, right? If you're losing $138 a month, that's still not a deal. Okay, so let's plug this in. Now, let's say my rent is $1,600 a month. What price do I have to buy the property for? So you can update here in B4 what the price is so that your cash and cash return number becomes 8%. See what happens. If I go to 100 grand, now it's 7.3. So maybe if you buy this property for 98 grand, boom, now it's a deal, right? Again, it's not investment advice. I'm not soliciting any investments on this call. Just simply showing you all what I'm doing every single day to practice, to understand the market, to see what's going on. All right. 194. Now, I got some friends in Kansas City, so I might ask them, hey, what do you think a 2-bedroom is renting out for? Is it going to be 1600? Because that's going to drastically affect what I'm willing to pay for this deal, right? At 7.875% return interest rate. So let's say I go up to 1700. Now, definitely, I don't think it was higher than that because you got to cover utilities. At 1700, well, guess what? Now I'm willing to pay 110 grand because that still rounds up to 1800, right? So this is how I want you to learn how to play with the levers to figure out what is a deal for you, right? Because all these might be deals, to be honest with you, but it might take a lot of work. And it's up to you to figure out, hey, what is going on here? What would make this a deal? What wouldn't make this not a deal? All right. Well, let's do one more scenario. What if your interest rate goes down by a full point, 6.75? Okay. Now, assuming everything else stays constant from the last scenario at 1700 bucks, my cash to cash return number just jumped to almost 10%. So here's what I'll do. Well, now if I go to 120 grand or 118, boom, that's still a deal because that rounds up to 8%. So simply because my interest rate dropped one whole point from 7.875 to 6.75, my rehab is same at 120 grand, I'm willing to pay almost $8,000 more than my prior scenario, assuming I can still get 1,700 for rent on this property, 227, 7.7% return. That still works, right? All these different scenarios work. So this can really happen, right? If you see, here's something you want to understand. The 30-year mortgage interest rate is affected by two factors. One is the, let's say, 30-year mortgage interest rates for 10-year. One is the interest rate on the 10-year yield. And then the other is the spread between the 10-year yield and the 30-year mortgage interest rates. Now, historically, that spread has been about, let's call it 1.5 to 2%. Right now, it's close to about 2.2. So it's not that bad, right? But it's gone as high as almost 3%. And that's when you saw interest rates in like it was like the eights, right? And that's when like the whole housing market just stopped. It was like just crashed. It's crazy. But that's what happened. So, what does that mean for you? You're going to want to figure out if there's good news happening, meaning there's better trade deals happening, there's positive vibes, traders are feeling more confident, more understanding, right? Or maybe someone will say, hey, Trump picked this new Federal Reserve chair. And now the new Fed chair is going to go around to the bond traders and say, hey, as soon as I get into the office next year, I'm going to lower interest rates, right? Because people trade on future expectation. So that could drive interest rate down. And then all of a sudden you have more trade deals that come into play. So that narrows the risk profile of the market. So it narrows the spread because there's more predictability. And that's how you can get a full point movement overnight. It really can happen. So just be very, very mindful about what's going on in the market because this can happen overnight and that affects how much you're willing to pay for a property. So be very, very mindful. All right. So hopefully this was helpful, everybody. I hope this was helpful. And this is why we do this every single day. We analyze these deals, we get better, learn to analyze these scenarios. Today, I want to just cover a little bit different marketing because just in case you haven't seen it, I've had podcast episodes before. So just a new podcast episode alert. If you have not seen it, the most recent podcast I released was with Corey Dieter. Corey was my own private money lender, right? I'm sharing everything with all of you. He was my own private money lender for a bird deal that I had. Again, not solicitation, but I brought him on a podcast just to share with you how private money lenders evaluate deals. Because I think one of the number one problems you'll face is not having capital for your deal. And you got to learn how to become that person that's worthy of someone that might trust you because it's a significant responsibility. All right. All right. Have an amazing night, everybody. Hope you all have an amazing Tuesday. I'll see you all tomorrow for day 692. Have a good night, everybody.